I think for a lot of people who are starting to open up to the idea of Christianity or going to church or maybe reading the Bible as a result of just seeing the craziness of the world around us and just starting to open up, a lot of people are struggling with a few intellectual hurdles around things like Darwinism or the age of the universe or evolution and things like that. And I'm wondering, how would you address that issue for people? And maybe also, how do you address it personally yourself in your own world, in your own faith?
Yeah, I'm not a. I people might be surprised at the way that I formulate it. Is that I believe that science is a very secondary thing. I believe that the story in Scripture, the Genesis one, actually offers much more than whatever scientific description you can come up with. And one of the reasons is that a true myth or a true story that you can live in doesn't only describe phenomena but actually also gives you purpose. It gives you direction. It also it formulates reason and, and like I said, directionality. And for sure Genesis 1 does that. That is, the Big Bang and evolution and all these things doesn't tell you how to live, doesn't tell you how to be, doesn't tell you what place the human has in the cosmos. It basically is just a description of how a bunch of things, interact with each other on a very mechanical level. And therefore, these are very limited explanations for us. Whereas Genesis 1, say Genesis 1 to Genesis 3, offers the image of the structure of a world and meaning of how it is that the world is meaningful. And that's what we care about. That's what's important. And so I tend to prioritize Genesis 1 to 3 in terms of being the best story ever told. Now, some people might disagree with me, but I don't think that then for me, the rest doesn't really matter. That is that, these scientific theories that come in and come out, like they cycle in and cycle out and they'll be changed and they'll, every scientific fact, everybody thinks that science is solid, that if you can really rely on science, but it's the
Yeah,
very opposite of that. Science
yeah,
is always changing, actually.
yeah,
Science is every scientific discovery that they find, there's like an expiration date on it, especially theories. You don't know when the date will expire, but at some point it will, and they'll find some other theory. And it doesn't always mean better. Sometimes it's radically different from the one that was before. And so when I look at things like evolution and stuff, I just kind of take it. It doesn't really bother me. It doesn't make a difference in how I live and what I think. And there's some structures in evolutionary thinking that I think are useful to help people understand things, that can shed a light on certain realities. But if someone tells me that I come from an ape, like, whatever, what are you talking about? I don't come from an ape. That's ridiculous. I come from heaven. It's like this is where I come from.
yeah,
And the image of 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 God putting his spirit into dust. It's like that's actually how a human being exists. A bunch of multiple things that has a spirit inside and that is joining it towards purpose. What is telling me that I come from an ape do? It doesn't do anything except tend to pull me towards that behavior. Instead, tend to pull me towards justifying all kinds of ridiculous things humans do by
yeah,
saying that we're just a bunch of apes. And
yeah,
you see it, by the way, like you see it in like even in very popular people that speak, when they go there, they're basically they're basically fantasizing about power and about that kind of thing. That's what they do when they're going towards, oh, we're made from apes. Like, nah, we
Are
come
you,
from apes. We don't come from apes.
are you referring to Joe Rogan here, Jonathan?
Yes, I am referring to Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
I mean, he might, because I think he's become a Christian, or at least he's going to church. Like, he might at some point be able to reformulate
yeah,
his lineage, right, and kind of
yeah.
understand that, you know,
Have his own
how can I
evolution.
say, what is in the dust that God gathered together, right? It's actually all of animal kingdom, like all of when God gathers the dust into man, you could say he gathers all of creation into man. And so, yes, the animal kingdom is also part of it. And so maybe, yeah, to some extent, apes are part of that gathering
Yeah.
into us, just like other mammals or other animals are part of that gathering in. But the idea that that's my origin, that's insane. Like, that's nuts.
Well, here's another thing that I want to ask you, and I've heard you talk about this before brilliantly. Do you actually think people who say they believe in evolution actually live their lives as if they believe in evolution?
I mean, no, obviously not. Nobody
Yeah.
does that.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing that you see, and even people that I respect, they'll say this is what evolution wants, but we should really be careful with that, because obviously evolution has genocide in it. Evolution has, rape and murder and all of these things, because just getting your genes across to the next generation doesn't mean that, it doesn't matter how
Hmm.
you do it.
Yeah.
Like in terms of just that very mechanical process. Genghis Khan is the ancestor of most of Asia, So it's like he wins, right?
Yeah.
He, in terms of evolutionary terms, Genghis Khan is a great hero. But everybody kind of recoils from that when they really look at it.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing about this is, have you noticed that believing in evolution and making that your story, right? Making it really the story that you think is true. Why does it lead to people not having children anymore?
That's such a great point.
How is it? How did this happen? How
Yeah.
did it happen that people use Darwinism to attack Christianity and kind of try to debunk it, and then believe in this, and then lead to a demographic collapse?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the funny thing. So I think it's funny. I think that my Catholic grandmother is a better Darwinist than these Darwinists.
Exactly. Well, this is
And at
what's
least she's
really,
like embodying it. She's actually having children.
yeah. Well, this is what's really funny about the whole Richard Dawkins debate that happened ages ago, and like I wish you were part of it. I don't think you ever debated Richard Dawkins, did you? Right?
I don't
No.
think Dawkins would want to talk to me.
No, but this is like you're the
You just
perfect
look at
guy.
me with the puzzled eyes for
Yeah,
like
yeah.
2 hours.
But you'd be the perfect guy for it, because it's like, well, hold on. Okay, so Richard Dawkins believes that religions, let's say Christianity, is a product of evolution because it happens to help the group survive. And so groups of people got together and started believing in things that help them survive. It's like, well, okay, if you're a Darwinian evolutionist, why don't you then believe in God? Like, if you're a Darwinianist, none of it makes sense. And also, the whole reason why we have a problem with the Nazis is that they were essentially into Darwinism, the whole eugenics thing, and creating the
Yeah.
Ubermensch, and
Oh yeah.
people are repulsed by it. So when people say, "Oh, I believe in science, I believe in evolution," it's like, I don't think you do. I think you're repulsed by it. You say you don't believe in Christianity and you're repulsed by that, but you live your life as if that's true, and you
Yeah.
live your life as if evolution is repulsive, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. And so there is definitely a performative contradiction in all of this, which I haven't totally been able to disassemble, like, or to fully understand. There's something about, there's like a trick. It's like the snake's trick. It's as if you embrace mechanical causes, right, or biological causes as being the origin of you, it's as if it actually it's really, I think it's probably what it is.
Yeah.
It's probably something like, actually, no, your source is meaning. Your
Yeah.
source is orientation. Your
Yeah.
source is goodness.
Yeah.
But then you notice that there are mechanical causes. They're all kind of, we do have genes. We do have an animal body. We are definitely connected to the animals. And you say, no, that's the source. So you take the thing, you unplug it again, you plug it back.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, you actually stop, then even the animal aspect of yourself, you actually stop playing it out.
Yeah.
Then you start to destroy yourself, and
Yeah.
you don't actually have children.
Yeah. It's
It's
mad.
just wild to think about it.
Which, by the way, is like the thing which is going to destroy us all, right? If we don't
Yeah.
have babies, we are all going to die out. It's why we're dealing with all these problems in Europe, which will
Yeah, but
lead.
we're Darwinian. We all believe in evolution,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Which no,
But then
no
if
one's
you
having
talk
babies.
about birth rate and demography, and you talk about mass immigration, oh, you're the devil.
Yeah.
Oh, but
yeah.
wait, aren't you the Darwinians? Aren't
Yeah.
you the evolutionists? So why
I'd never
would
thought
you
of that.
talk about these things?
Yeah, I've never thought of that. That's crazy. And then obviously that leads to the fact that Europe's going to be ripped apart. There are going to be these like nationalist groups that will rise up necessarily
Okay.
to try and deal with this. Like, this is a frightening precipice we are on, people. We're all dealing with this at the moment. It's going to happen.
Yeah. But I think, like, like I said, I don't mind the scientific descriptions of evolution.
Sure.
They're fine. They're totally fine. The problem is the narrative. The problem is the story. That's not your story.
Right.
That is just, and it's very difficult. I think this is where it's difficult for people, is because we abstract ourselves from the world. And this is the problem with Dawkins, and it's a problem with many of the kind of evolutionary thinkers, is that they think that they can just stand outside of human consciousness and human memory and human existence and formulate a world outside of that. And the truth is that you can't. And that's why you end up with all of these performative contradictions. That's why you end up with someone who believes that evolution is their mythology that they embrace, but then what they ultimately end up doing is, like they believe in evolution, they read Harry Potter, they don't have children, they become adult Disney people, and it's like they just have all. And so it's like this is exactly what Christianity was bringing together, right? It's like if you live in within the church and you have a coherent worldview that makes sense and will produce fruits that will be both ethical fruits. You'll produce families, you'll produce communities, and so, so it's like if people could see just the performative contradiction, that there's at least priority, right? It's like you can believe in the scientific things that the scientists tell you about how things function and how beings interact with each other and how chemicals move between things. Like you can believe that, but that's not your story. Like that's not the meaning that you have in your life.
To tag it onto this a little bit, maybe just to get your quick answer on this, because I think I've heard you describe it really well. People who might struggle with like the biblical timeline and like age of the universe whole thing. I think you described saying, well, you believe like human civilization did start about 6,000 years ago. I remember you said something like that. How do you approach that question?
Well, there's no human memory that is older than, maybe 10,000 years. We don't know exactly, but there's no human memory from before that. That there is, no matter how you understand it in mechanical terms, there's clearly something that happened, about at the time that the Bible talks about the beginning of our existence, that coordinates all human memory towards that moment. And so, there is no. And so you can't, whatever was before is not connected to our humanity. There's no other way of formulating it. It's like a complete mystery or a complete strangeness. And so that's kind of how I see it. You could think about it like in terms of biblical terms, that in some ways we don't have a memory from before the flood. Like we have a memory until the beginning, till after the flood. And then that's the only kind of memory we have. And so there's no reason to, and maybe this is also the thing, is that you can't really formulate a world outside of human consciousness. The categories we use, even to do science, are human categories. They're born in consciousness. And so they're, when people talk about what the world was before humans existed, this is just blah, blah, blah. Like there is no world outside of consciousness. And so the world is born in human consciousness. So no matter how old that is the Big Bang is born in human consciousness. It has to be. There's no other way to talk about it. There's no other way to talk about how even the past has to be born in human consciousness. And so this is the priority. So it doesn't mean you have to completely ignore those things, but you have to understand the hierarchy of how you tell the story and the priority of it. And you can't abstract yourself from human consciousness, and therefore you always have to see it through that. So saying that the world is about 7,000-8,000 years old or 10,000 years old is the best beginning for a story. And then you can say other things downstream from that, but that's the best beginning.
Like almost epistemologically, would that be the right way of talking about it? Yeah.
But there is a connection between epistemology and ontology, because there is no ontology. There is really no access to ontology outside of epistemology. That's why in Christianity, we have this concept of the logos, which joins the notion of ontology and epistemology together. And so this image of the Son of Man as being the referent of all things. It's like this is the mistake that modern scientists make, is that for example, like when they talk about the solar system, and when someone says to you that the sun coming up in the morning is an illusion, because actually the Earth is turning and all of that, it's like no. The sun coming up in the morning is prior. The sun coming up in the morning is the primary experience. From that, you can then deduce other perspectives that you could imagine, but nobody's ever seen the solar system. You can't see the solar system. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. 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 And it's there's some real sense in, if I can like kind of, the cliche would be like, it does a, if a tree falls and there's no one to hear it, does it, did it make a sound, kind of thing. But there's a real sense in which like stars don't exist without a mind to perceive of it. Like if you think about like
Yeah.
a flower doesn't know how beautiful it looks. There's nothing. It looks beautiful. I don't know how it's creating all these beautiful patterns to attract insects and the intricate design. It has no idea what it looks like. In the same sense, like the stars, like it might be emitting light, but stars don't know they're emitting light. They don't know where they are in
No.
existence. There's no concept of time and space for a star. It's inanimate. And so there's
Yeah, but also at what level?
yeah,
This is what's funny. It's like, is it at the subatomic level?
you're right.
Where do things exist? Do they exist at the subatomic level? Do they exist at the atomic, at the molecular, at the
Right.
percept? Like, how do you clump beings together?
Yeah.
Do these weird like subatomic particles that are paired across the universe?
Yeah.
Do they form a being?
Yes.
And if not, why not? Like we function in human categories. There's no other way to talk about reality outside of intelligible human categories.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is when you're talking about like, oh, when the sun comes up, it means this and that. And some people have said, well, oh, like clearly Christ is just a metaphor for like the rising of the sun, because like the sun rose again on the whatever. And it's like, how
Yeah, they're
would
getting it upside down. They're getting it upside down.
yeah.
They're
Yeah.
getting the sun, the rising sun is a metaphor for Christ.
Yeah. So this is I guess the Christian perspective. It's like you understand the world through Christ. Like it's not the other way around.
Yeah, well, because consciousness has priority.
Yeah.
That you can't understand the world outside of consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the sun is reflected in human consciousness and in human categories and in human purposes.
Yeah.
And therefore the sun is the one that is a metaphor for, let's say, the peak of what human experience is. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that it's all relative or that it's all whatever you want it to be. No, not at all. It's completely coherent.
Yeah.
But this is why God says that man has dominion over creation, is because ultimately man is co-creator, not only in the fact that man can make things, which is already something, but also because the world exists in man. The world exists in man's perception. There is no way of escaping that. All the categories that we use to define things, to separate things, to measure distances, to measure relations, to talk about relevance, all of these are the categories of human consciousness.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think there's really no way away from that.